Well, hi everyone out there. Thank you for being here. I have to tell you, I've had a cold this week, so my voice allegedly is sexy. I don't know. It's raspy, and so I don't know. It's gonna be a whole different vibe. But just remember how my voice sounds like when it's not like this. Um, it might be too sexy for the show. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But anyway, I am so happy that you guys are here. I know some of you are on YouTube already. You sent us comments and everything. Hello, Dave. Good to see you. As always, Dave always asks the best questions. But let me introduce my guest today. I've known this man for a long time. He is a brilliant, brilliant writer, storyteller. Incredible. He's the best. I think he's the best in my estimation. He's the best in the whole on the whole planet. Let's say, right? He did a show that I created and produced with my partner for PBS, and he was one of the storytellers. So he's incredible, and I'm so thrilled that he is here with us on the State of Grace podcast live today. This man has won the Stanley Drama Award for playwriting, and he was a Tonight Show writer. Please welcome to the virtual stage, Dylan Brody. Hi, Dylan. How are you?
Anticipated that I would be replacing the image of you still on the screen, and it confused me when it became a triptych of faces on the screen, with two of them being yours. I feel a little bit outnumbered, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, you kind of are, but not by me. By the State of Grace podcast cast and crew. That's where my mystery man who engineers the show
He whose name shall not
is.
be spoken, the worker of all things electronic.
Absolutely. The magical worker. Yes, 100%. So, Dylan, we've known each other for a very long time. And I love your work, obviously. That's why you're here. And that's why we cast you on the PBS show that never aired, but still, we got a development deal.
I only have vague memory of it, and as is so often the case, as I can so often say of various old projects, I have since been banned from the room in which we shot that, as I recall. Um, we shot that at Kulak's Woodshed, didn't we?
No. Oh, that was another one. The
Oh,
PBS one was in the IE. That was
yeah,
at
yeah,
a
yeah,
sound stage.
at a wonderful little soundstage studio. I do remember that.
Wait,
Uh,
were you banned from Kulaks? How can you? What did you do?
uh, I am recently diagnosed autist, and
Oh,
my autism rubs up uncomfortably against the OCD nature of the man who runs Kulaks.
I feel you.
As I
Yeah.
was preparing for my last solo show, which included a bunch of music and guitar playing and stuff that I was very uncomfortable doing on stage, so it required that I go to open mics like I did when I was starting out as a comic. I had to take my guitar out to places that would just let me on stage while I worked out my discomfort around it in public. And Kulak's had an open mic night that I utilized. Um, and just my personality rubbed his the wrong way.
Oh no.
He kept getting very angry at me, and I kept having all sorts of horrible rejection response. And
Oh,
I had an evening book there. I had booked the place for an evening because he had sent out this desperate sort of, "Hey, we need money. We're going out of business. We need." So I said, "Hey, I'll book for an evening."
always.
Booked it out 3 months in advance, and then when I sent him a rundown of how the show was going to start, he sent me back an angry note that said, "No, we'll do it the way we always do it." And I'm like, "What?" And then I had to cancel the show and lost a lot of money on
Oh
advertising it.
my gosh.
Um, and I never want you here again. I never step foot in this room again. So I
Oh
got
my. That's brutal. That's savage. Wow, I think his reaction is way too crazy.
Um, I have begun to know, and his was, but that's fine.
That's his
That's his
response to
internal
your
issue, not
personality.
my
I get it.
internal issue. There have been times, make no mistake, that the reasons I've been banned from places or written off of people's lists is because of behaviors that I always thought were some deep character flaw. But I started
Oh,
to realize were about autism.
yes, and that's
Um,
why you're here today because
I'm
you were
sorry, did I cut any of your
recently
questions? Go ahead and ask me.
no, but you were recently diagnosed, and we were talking earlier, and we were saying how, you were telling me how things like these happened, and then you questioned yourself, but now after you've been diagnosed, everything seems to make so much more sense.
Oh yeah.
So how does that feel compared to before, where you were like, why do people react like this to me?
Well, yeah. Um, I was raised by an academic artiste,
Hmm.
right? Uh, who saved himself any of the pain of engaging with the marketplace by working in the university system. Essentially, he institutionalized himself from a very early age. Um, I've
Yeah.
begun to think that to some degree, the universities system is where what I think of as high functioning autistics. I'm told that's not the right language anymore, but I cannot keep up with it.
It's
But
neurodivergent.
yeah, the neurodivergent intellectual can be institutionalized. The OCD, you're right. Once you get past tenure, you're locked in. You get to do your lecture where you do your uh, information download dump to a
Yeah,
bunch of willing listeners once a week. Like it feeds all of that stuff. My dad was an academic. My mom, to some degree, was an academic, and I wanted to go nowhere near it.
right.
Uh, I went into the arts thinking it was connected to show business and couldn't understand how those rubbed up against each other improperly. But when I found out I was autistic, suddenly my sense of self-loathing around a lot of my career melted away.
I love that.
Um, there were things that I could not do ethically that seemed to be no problem for anyone else. And it had to do with sets of rules around the arts that I had made for myself as a child and stuck to firmly that served me in some ways and ruined me in others.
How
Uh,
so? Tell me, can you be more specific about that or give us
I'll
an
give you a
example?
self-aggrandizing story that I only came to understand for what it was recently. And then I'll give you hang on, I want to fix something so I don't get feedback. I think that'll be much better. Um,
Yeah.
and then and then I'll give you another one from more recently that's sort of similar. Um, I always believed that it was my job to fill in the punchline if I heard something as a setup. That I was on the lookout for a setup to respond to with punchline. I wanted to be Groucho Marx constantly, Hawkeye Pierce constantly. I wanted to be the witty guy who always had the fast retort. And I would watch TV learning fast patter from Hawkeye Pierce. If I saw a movie, I would absorb the joke structures that the characters use. My wife describes it as my autistic special interest, right? For me, it wasn't trains or
Yeah.
dinosaurs. It was how do jokes work. Um, and because my father was this artistic purist in a lot of ways then when I was a child, um, I was absorbing stuff about what is said through the arts, right? And I came to LA with this idea that people say they work in entertainment because they don't want to take responsibility for what they're saying to the masses through their art.
Mhm.
And I didn't understand that that wasn't an argument that I should have when I was trying to sell a screenplay at Paramount,
Yes,
right?
but you know what? You do have a point. Big time.
I
Big
do,
time.
but I
Huge.
was arguing it in all the wrong places. And if we are saying something to people, we
Yeah.
have to really be conscientious about what we're saying. So the two
Yes.
stories.
It's kind of like a read the room kind of thing that's hard for you to do.
And there were some switches that I couldn't do. I
Hmm.
couldn't shift into the purely capitalist approach to the
Right.
creation of material that a producer takes at that time. I
Absolutely.
had to look at it as pure art. Don't talk to me about the money or the budget. That'll freak me out and put me on the, then it's impure and broken somehow. Like there were all these
Wow.
rules around it. So I get an audition. I'm pretty much sleeping on the roof of the Comedy Store in 1986 or 87. Um, I am a homeless young comic. Um, and because I answer the phones at the Comedy Store, uh, I get myself a couple of interesting auditions. And at one point, I actually legitimately get an audition at HBO. They're putting together a sketch comedy show, and they think I would be right for it. At that time, I am doing far left. It's the era of Sam Kinison screaming evangelist, misogynist rage into the microphone, and Andrew Dice Clay,
Oh, yeah.
right, getting famous with his hostile homophobia and misogyny. Uh,
Totally. Yes.
and I was doing far left leaning anti homophobia material in my act on the road and not having a huge success and not understanding that it's because it really wasn't my time. Um,
Absolutely.
right. I believed that if I was funny enough, they should have to book me, but there
I
was no such rule,
totally, yeah.
and they didn't get that. So I'm broke and miserable, and I've got this audition, and I go in, and Andrew Clay, actually, who is still, I think, Andrew Clay. I don't think he was officially the Dice Man yet, but
Dice play. Okay.
was in the waiting room when I went in to read the right, and
Yes.
they give me the sides, and it is a to the camera monologue, like a news commentary style monologue, um, and it's all homophobic crap.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm reading it and I'm going, Jesus, do I just walk out? What do I do? Oh, wait a minute. No, I have 12 minutes on homophobia. So I pull out a pen, and while the other guys are sitting in the waiting room around me, muttering to themselves, maybe I should put the emphasis on that word. Maybe I should put the emphasis on that word, and all the things that, wannabe actors do instead of actually figuring out what they're saying. I went through it and adjusted the page. So it was, um, my Uncle Eugene might say their homophobic joke. It occurs to me my anti-homophobia joke under it.
Hmm.
Like breaking the whole thing out into me making my point, same format. I can do it directly to the camera. I use all of their jokes and then I counter them with jokes straight out of my act or in a couple of times written to purpose because I had 20 minutes.
I'm getting goosebumps. This is incredible.
I,
Like,
I
wow.
walk into the audition
Yes.
and it's a table with there's a guy with a camera, a giant ridiculous stupid video camera with a VHS tape snapped into it, and then three people in front of me and then one guy a little bit further down at the table in front of me drinking a lot of coffee.
Yes.
um, and I go into this thing and I've pretty much learned it now because I've been reading it and writing it for 20 minutes or half an hour, whatever. I probably got there earlier. I had nothing to do. I was broke and homeless. So I sit down in front of the thing, and this had not occurred to me until well after the fact. They've been hearing the same monologue over and over again all day, and I have jokes that I've been crushing with on the road. So I'm doing the thing, and the three people in front of me are cracking up. They are finding this hilarious. And I finish, and they say, "Thank you, Dylan. Could you just give us one read of it as written?" And I said, "Not unless you turn off the camera." And they said, "What?" And I said, "Listen, I don't mean to be a dick, but I put in a lot of work here to make sure that I wasn't going to be saying something that made me really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not going to leave a recording lying around of me saying the stuff on this piece of paper."
Wow. I love
Uh,
that.
uh, and they said, "Oh, well, listen, we're not really looking for writers right now." And I said, "Okay, I wasn't. I intended to. Do you want me to do a different take on it slightly or something?" And the guy at the end of the table with the coffee said, "You understand that I wrote this show?" And I
Wow.
said, I didn't. Very pleased to meet you. And he said, yeah, I think we're done. And, I was broke. I could have used the gig. Anyone else would have said, oh, sure, I'll do it. But somewhere in my brain, what I say now is that part of my lack of success comes from insufficient existential dread. There are just too many things I would rather die than do.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to support through the arts or entertainment an agenda that so offends my spirit that I would
Absolutely.
have to wrestle with my conscience and explain later to people why I had done it. You know,
Exactly.
uh,
Exactly. Which in the entertainment business, they would understand it,
of course,
because everybody does it.
of course, and there have been times that I have felt like I would give anything to sell out if just someone were buying.
What you're selling.
But in the long run, that's one where I feel a little bit full of myself over it, right? I blew a chance to stick to my morals. On the other hand, um, okay, here's where most kids had an invisible friend or an imaginary sibling. I had an unseen audience. Um, and really, when I work on stage, it almost feels as though it's a blur of the same people who have been there since childhood.
Yes.
That I should be able to just start by catching them up to where I am. Like it. Um, I had this unseen audience that was always there, and to whom I knew I was hilarious, even when the grown-ups didn't recognize it.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was my ethical responsibility. I used to say that I had comedy Tourette's because I would blurt out the punchline in inappropriate circumstances.
Yeah.
Um, since learning that it's this ethical rules construct I created as an autistic child that
Right.
felt like it was connected to my conscience, but was actually connected to some grooves in my brain,
Yeah.
uh, I have been able not like my mom. I recently had to go to the East Coast because my mom was dying in a hospital room and
Oh,
my
I'm so
family
sorry.
was there. And they wanted me there, and I didn't know why they wanted me there because they all think I'm an asshole because I'm always making jokes at the wrong time. And I was able to not make jokes through it, right? Which
How
was very
how
new
did
to me.
that happen?
Well, because I've been able to now recognize where in the neurological thing it was triggering to you have to. No, you don't have to. That's a rule you invented. That's not your place in the universe. That's
Yes.
something you invented as a child and then held on to for way too long in your life. You are allowed not to do the
Oh,
joke in the elevator if it makes your sister uncomfortable when you do the joke for the other people. The other people never seem to mind. It gets a little laugh and off they go. But
yeah.
my family doesn't want to be drawn into the spontaneous spotlight that I create, right? Like
Got it.
I thought it was my job. So I'm in a meeting at Funny or Die. I'm pitching a show that I've wanted to pitch. This is now just pre-COVID. I'm going to say 2018, 2019. There's a show I've wanted to pitch to Funny or Die forever. I can do it on, $30,000 an episode. I can crank out 5 episodes in a weekend. I've got a plan. I've got a production schedule. I've got a pitch. I have sent them the pitch deck. They have canceled twice. They've postponed twice. And now it's 6 months since I sent them the thing. And finally, the guy says, yes, I looked at your pitch deck. I think you're brilliant. Come on in. Let's talk about it. And we start to talk about it. And it becomes clear to me, we're just alone in a room. And it becomes clear to me that he has neither looked at the pitch deck nor read the script. And I say, you haven't read the script in the 6 months you've had, have you? And he says, no, I haven't. And I stood up, circled around the table, and swatted him in the back of the head,
No, you did not.
which was hilarious to the unseen audience. In that moment, the part of my brain that sees what's funny I was teaching at the martial arts studio at that time. So I was constantly doing that kind of physical rough and tie, been there
Yes.
that morning with other guys. And this guy has just confessed to me that he has been putting me off for 6 months and he hasn't looked at the fucking thing. And that is hilarious. And in my head, it's funny or die. We're comedy professionals. He has to know. And he looked up at me and said, well, that's never going to happen again. And like, I knew, right, that's inappropriate. That's not right. Why would you do that? What the fuck is wrong with you? Right? And then I go home and I would huddle in a fetal position in my bed, just going, why do I ruin every opportunity? Why do I make people hate me? Why am I such an idiot? And then, you find out that it's part of this construct you had built, and you, as
Yep.
an autist, and I look back over my life, and it's one after another moments where I can go, oh, I see how and why I screwed that up. Oh, I see what I appeared to be in that moment. And
Wow.
suddenly I can forgive the people I thought were incredibly cruel to me. I can forgive the guy who runs Kulak's Woodshed, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
because
I
it
hear you.
becomes clear that here's a one of the aspects that, my hmm, autism comes in constellations of affects.
Okay.
In my case, it is a constellation that draws a picture across the sky of a crazy man punching the side of an ice cream truck, screaming, "Stop with the bells already!" Right? Um, and as I began to put the constellation together, I realized my grandmother, who was a third grade teacher, one of the creators of the Head Start program. My grandmother had said, "Good evening, David Cook." My grandmother used to say to me all the time, "You're so literal, Dylan." And literalism is one of the tools I use to get to jokes frequently. Taking an idiom as literal is one of the basic twists that I use as a formula. And literalism is one of the affects in my constellation.
I see. Yeah.
And when I was a child, like one of the things that baffled me when I was a child was, why am I so obviously punchable? Right?
Obviously punchable.
Yeah. Why? What is it about me that makes people want to hit me? People my
Wow.
age, some teachers, just like there,
Oh,
I generate hostility in some people.
right,
Um,
right.
and I remember asking my father why, what I could do, why they didn't, and he said, just keep your head down and do your work. And I had never really thought about this particular moment until I was diagnosed and going through everything with the literalism eye and writing and journaling and doing all of my work as a writer to source all of my new memories and how they
Mhm.
now fit together. And as I remembered this moment of him saying, keep your head down, I remembered what the rubber toe caps of my sneakers looked like. Because I was the kid, and I'm going to turn sideways for this. I would walk to and from school like that. And then someone would shout, "What's wrong with you, Brody?" I had long hair. Say, "What are you, a boy or a girl? What's wrong with you, Brody?" And I would shout, "I'm keeping my head down. What do you want? Why are you doing this?"
Oh,
Because I had believed that he was giving me the literal information. Keep your head down and you'll be fine.
wow.
And the kid who walks around staring at his shoes looks like a weirdo because he's autistic. But in 1972, in 1969, that's not what it is, right? In
Right.
1962 and 1969, there's just autistic, which is lumped in with the mentally disabled, the emotionally disabled, the unable to learn the way normal kids do. And then there's weird smart who read, during lunch, and then during recess discuss the curriculum with the teachers in the faculty lounge while drinking coffee.
Yeah.
And I was that kind of weird. So I I was suddenly, and this was just 2 years ago that it was first suggested to me that I might be on the spectrum.
2 years ago. Oh my goodness.
I
Nobody ever even like thought about it
I
or,
I'll tell you the story.
yes.
I made the mistake of calling for my sister's birthday
Okay.
instead of sending a quick text from a burner phone.
Okay.
Um, and for the record, this story is true and mine, but that pause was created by Jake Johansson in 1992. Um, so I got my sister on the phone on her birthday, and we're chatting. And I was at that time in a fairly deep depression. I was not doing well right then. And I said, "Do you have any sense of what?" She's my older sister. Um, and for years I've said on stage, my sister is gay. I love her like a brother. But that is a lie.
That's
Um,
funny.
it is a lie. I don't like her. She's often really genuinely mean to me. Um,
Oh,
and but I was in this deep place of sorrow about a number of things that have been going on in my life. Many of them I have since realized autism related.
yeah.
And we she started to argue some things with me, and what they were do not matter. But I became defensive in the call and began to distance. And at a certain point, she said, "Why can't you just go to a place and join a community?"
What?
And I said, I don't do community. I have friends. I sort of hang out at the edge and Raskolnikov haze. I think they get me. And she said, "Okay, that's not being part of something. Are you sure you're not on the spectrum?" And I said, "Okay, well, it was great talking to you." And I got off the phone with her, and I said to my wife, "My sister just accused me of being on the spectrum." And my wife has fairly severe ADHD that was diagnosed
Mhm.
years and years ago, and teaches children in the school system.
Yeah.
And she deals with a lot of autists.
Oh,
And I said, "Well, my sister just suggested I might be," and she said, "Oh, that makes sense."
yeah.
And I hadn't expected that. So I went to my computer and went into a deep research spiral on autism. And one of the first things I found as an affect for high intellectual autism is the tendency to go into a research spiral.
Yes.
Um, and I ticked boxes. I was ticking all these boxes. Um, and one of them was, have you ever sacrificed a relationship rather than lose an argument? And suddenly I'm like, oh, relationships, jobs. Oh my God, what have I been doing? Right?
So that
Um,
hit you. That was the thing that hit you.
there were dozens of them as I went through.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, there are perseveration habits that I can't break. Habits of repeating and sort of a recursive dialogue in my head over conversations that I think I could have handled better, that I cannot pull myself out of for hours and hours and hours,
Wow.
rewriting them and trying to get out of them. And I realized it's exactly the same imaginative process as
Yeah.
the one I use when I'm writing.
Yeah.
I'm refining and perfecting dialogue for the characters in my head. It's just
Wow.
when it's coming out of this weird emotional state, it's painful and re-triggering of the emotional life that happened at the time and not useful and productive.
Absolutely.
Um,
Can I interrupt you for a second? Because I got to read this for you. I'm in awe at the raw vulnerability mixed with humor, the way he crafts the narrative, interweaving the story. I'm mesmerized.
oh, James, that's so sweet of you. Let me tell you, there's a recording of somewhere of my appearance at Rant and Rave recently, in which I told a somewhat more detailed version of the stuff that went on with my sister, the phone call with her, and then the time with her when my mother was dying, which was also complicated and
I
difficult
can't
and
even imagine.
hilarious. Um, just hilarious. I mean, the idea that I stand in an elevator with my sister and some strangers, And I feel that I deserve some kind of an award for not making a joke that none of them expects. Like I feel like my sister should thank me as we get off the elevator for having behaved like a normal person
Yeah.
for a two-floor ride. Because and she made me aware once that it makes her very uncomfortable, right? One of the elevator shtick pieces is third floor, lingerie, perfume, bedroom accessories, heavy farm equipment. Step lively, please. Watch the closing doors. And it's a three-part little goofy thing that I do, right? It starts as, why is he talking in the elevator? And then, oh, he's doing a funny voice. It's a little performative. And then it's the rule of threes with the broken pattern, intimate bedroom stuff, followed by farm equipment, tractors, and shit, right? So it's like three tiny jokes in one breath. And once I did this with my sister present, and as we rode on from that floor, she said, okay, you know what? Nobody wants to hear what you're fantasizing about with lingerie and whatnot. Because to her, it was just me being an attention hound in the middle of the. And at that time, it was me just being who I am, who runs on scripts, which is an autistic affect.
Mm.
I don't know how to behave with people, so I have all sorts of scripts. I've had 5 or 7 stock answers to how are you since I was 17.
Wow.
There's never been a better time to be in the Dylan Brody business. I'm charming, popular. How are you? I am handsome and delightful. I have like I just racks of them now, you know, because I have to have a response that I can get out so that I don't stammer a little bit and seem weird. And um, I've been doing coaching. I run Saturday morning writers workshops from 10 to noon, and then Tuesday evenings I've been running a humor and comedy writing workshop for all for Active Voice Productions. You can find out about it at activevoiceproductions.com if anyone wishes to. Um, and these courses, I realized, and as I coach people, and I do that as well on Zoom, right? So because the pandemic put one of us in our offices doing this. Uh, I do really well in meetings too. I do very well on Zoom because I can look directly into a camera and people think I'm looking them in the eye.
Oh, how interesting.
30 years, if I was trying to hear what someone was saying at a lunch meeting, I was looking over their shoulder and they thought I was looking for someone more interesting to talk to. But I can't look at your face and hear what you're saying. I don't pick up the information the same way. So I'm golden on Zoom. I don't have to actually look at anybody.
So interesting. Can you, Mystery Man, can you put James' comment again up, please? It's hard to rein in who we are simply to make others feel okay. It amazes me how people focus on how they feel, but not realize or ask how it is we feel whenever we are asked to box in our own self.
I get that, but they are no more to blame than are we.
Yeah.
It's humans being humans. Um, you know, all forms of racism and xenophobia and homophobia and all of it
Hmm.
comes from uh, early what's the word I'm looking for? Genetic fear of the other, right? Tribalism, the protective force at one time.
Yes.
Now it becomes purely destructive and damaging.
Hmm.
Uh, I because I grew up a peacenik in a peacenik family, absorbing rules as permanent. Um, I see the argument against warfare as absolute. We be doing that. These behaviors are tribal and
Yeah.
not helpful. They're not right for everybody,
Right.
regardless of man-made borders, regardless of human invented traditions.
I agree.
And they're all over things that we made up, stories in our heads that are as ridiculous as I must fill in the joke or I am betraying my purpose on earth, right? And,
Yeah.
we must serve one deity or another by doing this. We must protect the invisible line between or reclaim land that no man can own anyway.
A
Uh,
100% agree with you.
so uh, when we see people responding to autists or ADHD folk or um, or the physically disabled, um, there's a woman named Mandy Horvath, a legless woman who played a role in my independent film "You Are Here," Dylan Brody project, currently being screened at some festivals around the world. Um, and she and I talked about the way in which she becomes invisible in a room. And she doesn't behave oddly at all. You know, she's charming and beautiful and funny um, uh, and sort of Midwestern lovely. Uh, and yet, because she's constantly sitting, right? Because she's smaller, she becomes excluded and or thought less. We people will always have initial response to one another
Yeah,
that
that's
will either be proven true or disproven. And all we can do is try to look for our own biases and our own issues, uproot them when we can. And yeah, I have a whole story about visiting my Southern Baptist in-laws in the deep South. Uh, and by the end of the trip, with with all their Confederate flags and all their ridiculousness, realizing that I'm a bigot because I've gone into it assuming they're idiots, and I've spent the weekend assuming they're idiots, and by the end of it, if I'm being honest, I'm forcing everything they do into this lens when in fact there's a 17-year-old who's rebellious and she knows it's a rebel flag and she wants to irritate people, and that's what 17-year-olds do. And her
absolutely.
mom is buying her daughter the shirt that she wants with the Confederate flag on it, not necessarily because she agrees with it, because she wants to be a mom. She wants her daughter to like her. And my father-in-law was taking me to a swap meet, not because he's a hick, but because he knew there was one booth there that sold stuff that I would dig. Right? And they're just trying. And I'm the one who's putting the lens on it. And whenever I can, and I'm not saying, James, that there are not times. Uh, there's a fella in my HOA who figured out that he can trigger me. Uh, and he doesn't like me.
Hmm.
Um, and this started well before I was diagnosed and had any tools to deal with it. For years, I have outbursts of what seems like absolutely irrational rage. Let me start that again. I have
Interesting.
outbursts of absolutely irrational rage, like totally out of proportion, right? Um,
Really? Like, what would outrage you, for example?
well, largely it's when somebody lies directly to my face.
Oh, I hate that too. Yeah.
But I don't just realize they're lying and go, "Oh, I can discount this conversation and walk away." I escalate and I get into this place where I can't.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things that can. It's a kind of a cognitive dissonance, it turns out. But for years, and it happens more when I'm exhausted, and it happens more when I, had my mask up for a long time, right? I've been being public, I've been being charming, I've been doing the thing, and then something is just too much now,
I
right?
hear you. It's too much stimuli, isn't
And
it? Too
then
much.
suddenly I'm ready for a fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I've got I was in therapy over it over and over again. What is this rage in me? Where's the source of this rage? And then I found out it's this one particular dissonance, right? And the
Huh.
guy started to do it with me. He started to trigger me again. I was at the mailboxes and he started to take digs. And I felt the rage coming up. And as soon as I felt it, I went, oh, wait a minute. This is not a psychological thing. This is a neurological distress. And as soon as I stopped for that moment, uh, almost painful, tingling prickle of adrenaline unused traveled along the back of my arm. And I went like that to just shake it out.
Wow.
And he said, what is wrong with you, you retard? And I said, I'm autistic. Because this is the flapping. Some of them do it like this.
Oh my God, you're right.
It's the thing. I only had to do it with one hand. It's the stimming thing.
Yes.
I got overwhelmed. I was ready to do the thing that,
Yeah.
once caused me to have a restraining order taken out against me, where I
Mm-mm-mm.
just yell from the bottom of my belly at someone inappropriately. And instead of doing it, I did this.
Wow.
And it all loosened up out of me.
It's kind of like it regulates your nervous system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so, in answer to your question, Grace, absolutely yes.
I'll hear James again. I agree there's shared responsibilities. One could be more considerate of others and their feelings, while the other party could work on their own biases and insecurities. Empathy fosters understanding. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Listen, the gentleman I was just speaking of, who pestered me for a long time in my home complex here, um, he's much younger than I, uh, and he angers me, he vexes me. I say he vexes me. At
Yeah.
the same time, I am old enough to know that he's in pain and terrified. Um, because of the community nature of a townhouse complex, I am aware of his finances to some degree. I'm aware of some of his family relationships, right? And
Yeah.
um, and he's an absolute ass to me, right?
No.
And I don't need to deal with him that much. But at the same time, um, I know that I put off vibes that really bug some people. And he's in pain and not actually harming me as long as I can keep myself from going into an emotional spiral over, a conversation that happened a year ago. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, to my mind, it's not about whether we're more or less considerate of one another's feelings. It's a matter of taking control of that which I can control.
Which you can't control.
I can't
Absolutely.
I can't fix him. I
Yeah.
can't change my sister. And I'm sure my sister is a perfectly nice human with people other than me, but she's
Yeah.
trapped in patterns we've been in since childhood.
Absolutely.
And, she comes at me in ways that hit nerves that I don't have control over my responses to yet. I work on it without trying to change her. So I don't, yes, everyone can be more considerate of everyone else, but I can only control how considerate I am.
Absolutely. And also, I think not engaging in that energy. If somebody's angry at me, I am totally tempted to be angry back and fight them. But I choose not to engage in that anger because I will be at that level of, where the anger generates more anger and it doesn't resolve anything. So
Yeah.
I choose, and I had a fight one time with my roommate, and he was being an asshole to me. And I was like, listen, you're being an asshole. And I really want to tell you nasty things right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to engage with what you're saying to me. I'm going to my bedroom, lock the door, and I'm going to stay there. And that's what I chose to do because I know that if I started a fight, then it would have, who knows? And he was also intoxicated.
Oh
So I
yeah, that
know, yeah,
would not be
that would
good.
not have been a good situation. But you're right, it's a choice. We choose to either go with this feeling or not engaging and retrieving.
And I do not make no mistake. I do not have full control over this. There are still
Yeah.
times that I find myself in my office. Over the past couple of months, my mom died. I was grieving over that.
Yeah.
And then I took a couple of body blows from my family that felt like emotional attacks on me that are just
Yeah.
them dealing with it their own way. And, you know, certainly reasonably not wanting to engage the way I do it because, to my mind, they grieve mean and I grieve funny, but
Right.
that may not be exactly what it is, but they rub against each other badly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think you and I are simpatico
Yes,
on
I
a
think
good deal of
so.
our thinking. There's a story. I'm trying to remember if it's possibly something I would have. I don't remember what stories I did on the shows that you produced that I was
I
involved in.
don't remember, but it was really good. I don't remember.
A story of mine that includes my master's ideas about how the universe is not a fist. The fist is not the universe.
Right.
Have I told you this? Do you know this?
No, I don't think so. It doesn't ring a
You may
bell.
not know. I'm a martial arts master. I have
Yes, I know that. Yes.
I don't think I've talked about it in this podcast
In
yet,
this
so
podcast, yeah.
I'll
Do you
mention
have
it.
a black belt?
I
What
have
are martial arts?
fourth Dan black belt in Taekwondo, which is really a sport style. Third Dan black belt, and that's where I have a master's degree uh,
Nice.
from Korea. Third Dan black belt in Hapkido, which is a far more uh, utilizable style.
Yeah.
First Dan black belt in Kigumdo, which is a sword style, and then I've got a little bit of 1,000 other styles. A little.
That's crazy. That's a lot.
And my master, I was very upset about a client I was having difficulty with because they kept coming back to me with notes and making it feel to me like it was my fault that they wanted more changes that I would then do for free. And I did like it was just turning into a hassle, and I didn't know how to talk to them. So I went to my master because I see him as a seat of wisdom,
Nice.
and he laughed at me because that's how he starts every conversation. And then he took me out onto the mat, and we took off our shoes. We went on the mat. We bowed to each other. We bowed to the flags. And one of the black belts was sweeping the studio for him, uh, and Master Lim just sort of looked at me and went, "Sit! No, don't look at the fist. Don't look at the fist. Don't look at the fist. No, don't look at the fist." And the black belt said, "He's serious. Don't look at the fist." And I finally was able to drag my focus from
Yes.
this immediate threat from a man I have sparred and who I know can crush me. And as soon as I moved to his eyes, he grinned at me. And he said, "You see, if all you look at is the fist is the whole universe. You
Right.
have to encounter it. You cannot avoid the whole universe. But there's all this other space everywhere
But
that
we
is not
focus on that.
the
Yep.
fist. Don't look at the fist. Look at the person."
Right.
It led to an article that I wrote, I want to say for Huffington Post 8 years ago, called "Donald Trump is a Fist. Stop looking at the fist."
Donald Trump is a fist. I can. That's hilarious, but I totally get it.
He's
Yes.
a fist. Everything about him. He's a fist. And we can't stop looking at him because it's terrifying.
And the sirens are in my neighborhood. You hear them?
I do.
You said Trump is a fist, and then the police are like, "Let's go."
They're coming in. They're coming at us.
I know.
I but it I think that was the title of the article. Trump is a fist. Um, uh, God, it's embarrassing. I don't remember where I published it. There was a while
Oh
there.
no.
Well, there was a while there that I was sort of frantically writing and publishing my thoughts on the political scene as though uh, if I just said things enough, people would hear me, even though no one was listening. Um, uh, Now I'm not doing that this time around.
No, I give up on that. I don't. Yeah, I don't fool with politics or religion. I don't want to talk about it because it's all about division. Don't you think that
Oh no.
it's all
Um,
about division? That's how I see it.
I during the time that I was doing all the anti-homophobia material,
Yeah.
and there was when I was on the road doing that, I was a feature act for a long time before I became a headliner.
Yeah.
And when I was the feature act in the 80s, uh, ordinarily I would do, a couple of the strongest anti-homophobia jokes I had.
Yeah.
Um, but if I saw that the headliner was doing any kind of fag jokes, any kind of the bullshit that I was not happy about,
Yeah.
then I would do the full 12 to 15 against homophobia in my set. And
Excellent.
then he wouldn't be able to understand why his jokes weren't working. Because the jokes themselves can inoculate against the easy laugh.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can they can unite a room
Yeah.
toward an idea.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, the fun for an audience of a joke, a properly structured joke, is that they hear the first part and they think they know what they're hearing, and then they hear the second part and they have to go back and revise their understanding of the first part. Right? That's the mechanism.
Yeah.
That's the punch. I call it the Masonic capstone of the joke. I hope that someday someone will call it Brody's Masonic capstone. The part of the joke that must not be said aloud, but implied so clearly that it causes an entire room full of people to think it at the same time.
Right.
Right? That's incredibly unifying.
Yes.
Now, if what you connect them through into thinking at the same time is a lie, then
Right.
you are doing an evil magic.
100%.
If
Yes.
what you connect them with is the truth or a new viable insight or a genuine inspirational ideation, then you are using the technique for good. Um, this cracked open for me, this idea, when I realized that every joke is a magic spell.
I never thought of it that way, but you are so right.
You say the
And that's
right
why
word.
sometimes, like when people joke about, like again, like homophobic jokes or misogynistic jokes, I'm like, ugh, like it really the energy travels, and like you said, it unifies in that thought or divides. It can divide too.
Um, as a studying druid and practicing bard, um, once I figured out that every joke is a magic spell,
Love that.
you say the right words in the right order with the right inflection, and it causes any number of people to have the same unspoken thought at the same time.
Amazing. I love that.
And if they have that thought about something that's a lie, they believe it more strongly.
Wow.
So they
Yes.
feel it's right. But when they recognize a truth, oh boy, do they get excited. That's a whole other level of enthusiasm from a room, right? That's the applause break moment.
Absolutely.
That can be sometimes faked with a nice wordplay with a lie, but is much harder. You got to get down to the truth to really draw a crowd into that
Yeah.
state. Now,
Yes.
having realized that, I realized that every sentence is a magic spell in which we are stringing together sound codes to put a thought into someone else's mind.
Well, that's quantum physics, pure quantum physics. In the
Well, it's
quantum
true
field,
again.
you're vibrational. What you say, it's vibrational. They're vibrations. Every word has a certain vibration.
While I genuinely think that there is vibrational magic to be explored that has yet been discounted as magic and therefore not science. Um,
Yes.
Neuro-linguistic programming, all
Oh,
the psychological tricks of the mind, uh, are elements of the old magics. Mathematics are old magics. Um, I one of the all the old legends of magic
yes.
have from all over the world have in it the person who is lost to the scrying glass, who wants to control the world by seeing everywhere, who wants to see who's the most beautiful in the land, Narcissus who gets trapped in his own reflection and drowns, right? You
Yeah.
don't give in to the narcissism of the mirror. And then we invented these beautiful magic mirrors through which I speak to you now, through which for decades we showed television, we showed stuff in living rooms. And all we do is look at idealized images of ourselves, imagine ourselves better than we are, and take in advertising for profit. We
Yeah.
ignored everything the legends told us about what we should do with magic and what we shouldn't. Not for personal gain, for the good of the whole.
That's right.
And ultimately, as Arthur C. Clarke said, magic is nothing more than technology beyond the understanding of the observer.
A
So
hundred percent. Yeah.
when a druid created a limerick that
Hmm.
belittled a ruler, and after speaking it aloud in public had cursed that ruler so they could never wield the same authority in public again, all they were doing was writing a good joke. Everybody senses that power. We don't acknowledge that we sense it. It's why people say, I'm in entertainment. It's not show art, it's show business. Stop telling, if you want to send a message, call Western Union. Okay, but you are sending the message.
Yeah.
Your 48-minute hour of cop show is sending a message that the cops are smarter than the criminals and the criminals are a separate class. We don't have to worry about them because they'll be taken care of.
Absolutely.
And the good guys will always win. And your half hour, 26-minute half hours tell us that any dispute is just a misunderstanding and everything is good as long as it is exactly the same as it was at the beginning of the half hour, which it is if you spend it watching a sitcom.
Yes, that is so
It's
true.
misused magic. It's putting us to sleep.
I agree. I couldn't agree more with you, but I never saw it as magic. It is
Suddenly it's a
magic.
responsibility, right? Suddenly the ability to do it is a responsibility. The ability to the choice of how to use it becomes a responsibility. And
Words words are so powerful. They can be weapons or they can be healing.
um, if you go to activevoiceproductions.com/production, somewhere on that page, I've put up at no charge. Oh, it's also at dylanbrody.com/Patreon. I just realized.
Oh, okay. Mystery Man, can you put those websites?
Just that one, dylanbrody.com
Yeah.
slash Patreon. Poetry Against the End of the World. My one of my award-winning films. I can't say it without going award-winning films. Um, uh, that I give away, right? There's no licensing deal on it. It's free. You just go there,
Okay.
you can see it. Is poems over imagery, some performed live, some recorded in the studio. Um, but I literally created a company because I think the arts can save the world.
Oh,
Um,
100% agree with you. Yes.
for 40 years, I said, we are living in a dark age and we
Hmm.
have to spark to life our most innovative, inventive, creative selves if we want to emerge into a renaissance instead of falling into barbarism.
Yep.
And that was my whole idea. We got to get out of the dark age and into a renaissance. And I forgot that a plague comes in between. And when the plague hit, when suddenly we were all trapped in our homes and we were all faced, well, people who dread it were faced with existential crisis.
100%.
Uh, People all over the world started getting back to their artistic, expressive selves in the way that I had been indulging myself in being told I was lazy since childhood.
Wow.
Because suddenly what's important becomes clear. Suddenly
Yes.
everyone wanted a voice to be heard. And it's why the workshops take off the way they do. activevoiceproductions.com/education for the workshops.
Yes. Can
Uh,
can we put that one also on the comments or as a
anytime.
banner? Mystery Man. I can't say his name.
I understand. I don't know why, but
So I wanted to ask you, your wife has ADHD, right?
yes.
And a little bit of OCD. And I was telling you I was told I have ADHD. I'm gonna get diagnosed at some point, but I'm not ready. Um, but why do you think like ADHD people we get along so well with people in the spectrum? Because I like what people get offended about and all that. I actually see that as an asset. Like I appreciate you being honest and telling me things like they are and not just going around being subtle, diplomatic about because I don't understand that language. Like I don't get it.
My wife found a meme somewhere suggesting that for every ADHD person, there is someone on the spectrum that is their comfort animal.
Yes,
Um,
a
or
hundred
they are the
percent.
comfort animal. Um, Listen, I think all of the spectrum stuff that we talk about is nice naming of the demons, right? It's how science works. We have things that are, and then science slowly breaks them down into categories and groups and figures out how they work and how they divide up.
Yeah,
And we have reached a point in intellectual discourse at which these aspects of humanity are being given names and noticed, and patterns within that come to light.
yeah,
Um, I said long before, in 1987, I was saying that life is a process of finding the people whose bullshit doesn't bother you and who aren't bothered by your bullshit.
yeah,
And uh, Nancy's ADHD comes with some bullshit that's sometimes annoying. Eh. But none of it makes me crazy. None of it
right.
drives me nuts and makes me angry. Um, and my autism certainly comes with strange behaviors, not the least of which is that, I'm still cobbling together living as an outsider artist as I hit my 60s, right? I mean, that's a huge thing to put up with in a man in modern society.
Yes,
Um, it's certainly frequently a source of self-loathing for me that I'm just learning to come to terms with finally. Um, but uh, our bullshit meshes very well. Um,
yeah, right.
uh, the the literalism that I have
Mm-hmm.
uh, meshes fairly well with the incomplete sentences that she leaves dangling.
Oh my God, I do that all the time. What is that? That's crazy.
It is the belief that the full idea is clear from the first half of the sentence.
Oh my God, yes. And I had to retrain myself.
Yeah.
Like you did, you had to retrain yourself. I had to retrain myself to speak. And teaching has been amazing. Like I tutor kids with Spanish. It's been amazing because I have to spell things out. I have to, just go from number one, number two, number three, instead of going to 10 and expect you to know one through nine. Like you read my mind or something, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Nancy uh, gets more disjointed if she's tired, if she's been uh,
Yeah.
uh, there. She goes spends like on her summer break. She won't take Adderall. She needs it to stay focused with the kids. Otherwise, she just loses track of what's going on during the year when she's teaching. But
Wow.
then during the summer, she just comes off it again because she doesn't, and I can see the change in her behavior. It doesn't change her personality. It just
But
changes some of the behaviors. Um, but it's I think the people whose bullshit revolves around vanity are drawn to the people whose bullshit revolves around money, right? I mean, that may be a
Yeah.
that if you did the study, you would find the people whose bullshit revolves around something connect to the people whose bullshit revolves around. I'll bet you could find dozens of those.
Yes, I
Uh,
agree.
and the outsidership of neurodivergence provides a similarity of childhood experience, right? Um, and because the divergencies in ADHD and in autism are not directly aligned, but slightly offline, they just sort of fit together nicely,
Yeah,
right?
I think so. Yeah.
Um, and and uh, and also she's good people, so
Yeah, that's important.
um, so why wouldn't I?
Absolutely. And this is going to be the question because the podcast is called The State of Grace, which, besides being my queendom, it's also the ideal state of being, which is different for everybody. So I have two questions. How did you reach your state of grace? And what is your state of grace?
Wow,
That's a lot.
that is a lot.
Yes, take your time.
I don't know that I am comfortable saying I have reached my state of grace.
Okay.
Um, I anticipate imbalance, uh, sadness, anger, discontent. Um, I have a philosophy that came to me several years ago, right around the right around the time I stopped seriously studying Druidism the first time. Um, and the philosophy is this. Many religious folk believe in an afterlife
Yeah.
in which one receives reward or punishment. I have experienced moments in my life that have been so lovely, so satisfying, so simply so comfortable that I could spend the rest of my life trying to be decent just to be worthy of having had those moments.
Ooh.
And I have had moments of such internal anguish,
Hmm.
such pain, that genuinely, I believe, nothing I have done or am ever likely to do could really be worthy of that much punishment. So I think over the course of a life, we get heaven and we get hell.
Agreed.
We get to eventually figure out that we are the gods who
We
decide to be.
yes. Which one? Which one you feed? Do we feed our egoic self or our higher self? That's my view.
I am reminded of the old wise man who said, "Don't feed the wolves; they're wolves." Um,
Yes.
but yeah, in the '60s and '70s when I was growing up, I'll go with that. Um, the, science fiction was forward looking. We were trying to find our way toward a better, greater, more human and connected place. Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek with that specifically in mind.
Mm,
Before uh, Rod Serling had been forgotten, before the idea that the arts might have a place in the world of entertainment was forgotten, he put the original Star Trek universe into motion. Over the past 25 years,
hmm.
we have created apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic science fiction. We have aimed ourselves toward the fist.
Yeah. Yes.
Um, and it's the thing we have imagined, and it is all we have imagined, and anything else has been shushed by executives who believe that no stakes are interesting unless it is the death of humanity.
Jeez.
It must be world ending.
Yeah.
It must be life or death. It must be world ending. Uh, and we have been allowed no freedom in our directed zeitgeist. to think creatively about the possibilities in a future that has beauty.
Well, according to quantum physics, there's several timelines running parallel to each other where it's different outcomes and different things happening.
Yeah, um, that gives me little solace because I think I only have access to this timeline and my behavior.
No, I don't believe so. I believe that we can choose what timeline we want to be in. As you know, I went through a cancer healing journey, right?
I
And
didn't know.
oh, yeah, I had
Congratulations.
stage three breast cancer.
I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you are well now.
Thank
And
you. I'm cancer free. I'm
also,
good. I'm
in
good.
my own autistic blurting way, and I hope you will not use it for a cheap applause break.
But anyway, I'm a triple threat: surgery, chemo, and radiation.
Wow.
Yeah, I went through all that. And I started researching because, I had time. So, quantum physics, all kinds of shit. And so, what I did is like, I chose my timeline every day. I was like, I'm choosing the timeline where I'm perfectly healthy and I'm
Oh,
healed and I'm happy and I have peace. Every single day, I chose that because I made my decision before I started all the treatment. I can be miserable or I can be joyful. And I chose the
that is
joyful.
lovely self-aware magic use right there. That is
Magic right there. Yes.
that is beautiful. And that is the defining for yourself of the terms that you are going to apply. I talk a lot about calendrical magic. And, the first thing, the Stonehenge was a calendar, right? It
Really?
told, yeah, it tells, you can see when the sun is done getting shorter and is going to start getting longer again by knowing
Yeah.
the solstices, right? So if you know when that's happening, you know a tiny little bit about the future, right?
Yes.
You can reassure the dumb people who farm that the sun is coming back. It's okay. Have a party, light some lights. It's going to be okay. Look how it comes down right between the two things. Now it starts getting longer again the days. Breathe.
Yeah.
It's all right. Basic understanding of the world around them gave them some security and a little peek into the future because there are patterns and repetitions. Everybody says you cannot see the future. But if I put something on my calendar, I know where I am going to be on Thursday.
That is true.
That is very basic magic, but it allows me to
Yep.
know the future by determining it myself. The more I have my calendar filled out, the less anxious I am because I am controlling my future, the thing I was told I could not do. Anyone who tells you you cannot change the world has a vested interest in maintaining the status quo.
Agreed 100%. Could not agree more. I am telling you, and I'm not saying that everybody that has cancer and has applied this and, they didn't survive that. It doesn't say anything about the person. I'm just saying my experience as a cancer survivor. It's every single day, Dylan. I would say I am harmony. I am order. I am truth. I am healed, perfectly healed every single day. And not just once, many times a day. And sometimes when I have intrusive thoughts of the fear of recurrence, which is very normal for cancer survivors, I go, no. You know why I'm not going to get recurrence? Because I am choosing right now, constantly choosing the timeline where I'm cancer free and I don't have to deal with this anymore. Every time that fear comes to me, I choose the timeline where I'm cancer free.
I think you have created the name for the demon. You've created the path for yourself through the wildlands, right? This is all the old tales. Um, I was just not allowed to post in the window. I tried to post activevoiceproductions.com/education, and your software said that I wasn't allowed
Well, excuse me, software.
to.
Yeah, I think you know what he's going to do with the mystery man.
Fine.
We'll do
Uh,
it.
um, so, Grace, let me ask you this. Well, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm cancer free, planning to stay that way. Made a
Um,
lot of changes that I can control to avoid recurrence and went through the rabbit hole, as you know, because you know how that is, like the research hound
oh,
thing.
yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I don't suppose you know Kat Gwynn. She's
Sounds
a
familiar.
photographer who, Kat Gwynn is a photographer, wonderful photographer. She did the artwork for, I think, four of my albums. Um, all
Nice.
of my albums, by the way, albums and books available at dylanbrody.com/emporium, dylanbrody.com/emporium. Um,
I'll put that
uh,
here.
uh, the, uh, sorry, Kat Gwynn had cancer, I think breast cancer, yeah.
Yes.
Um, and created a photographic series, created a photo book called 10 Mile Radius
Yes.
because she realized that the nature of the treatment and the nature of the process had reduced her world. And she brought her photography down to just what occurred within that 10-mile radius, her home to treatment, her home to, and uh, and within that 10-mile radius, she found a whole life and channeled the healing through her artwork.
Wow.
Um, and it was there are similarities to your choosing every day. You chose every day that this is the timeline you've been. She chose every day uh, to observe and make photographs of uh, of the life that existed.
I love
Separate
that.
from her. Yeah, it's um, we have been trained to have so much less power
Oh my,
than
I keep preaching that we are magical and powerful beings. And unfortunately, I had to go through cancer to realize that we truly, truly are. I've reached a point, Dylan, where, people are like, you manifest this or that. I don't even manifest. I think something and it happens. Like, right, this, I think about someone, they call. I think about something, I get an opportunity right then and there within the next 5 minutes. It's insane because I've trained myself to believe that what I think, my thoughts and emotions, can put things in motion.
I love that. Um, yeah, I was saying for a long time that a friend had told me I should get a vision board, and I told him that I'd get a picture of a vision board, and if a vision board manifests, I'll think about it.
That's
Uh,
funny.
and I put it up on Twitter, that joke, and a woman who creates vision boards for people sent me one, and I was like, oh fuck, one manifested. Um, and I am not at the same time that I am a druid and a bard. Um, I utilize my understandings of these esoteric energies in tremendously sort of practical, simple ways. I don't get overly precious about it, right? I don't I don't think in terms of vibrations. I think in terms of the action that I can take and the sphere of influence that I have around me and how I can work better within that. It's just because it's how my mind functions.
It's,
Um,
it's, it's the same thing, you just see it differently.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would imagine that's largely the case. Um, but also when I made You Are Here, a Dylan Brody project, currently on the festival circuit, starring Paul Provenza and Michelle Martin with
Nice.
um, it's a really fun art film. When I was making it, there was one shot that I wanted to get. It might be my favorite thing that I've ever created in my life. Um, there's a gag in it, and in order to set up the gag, I wanted to have a static shot of a desert and my two lead characters way off in the distance in the desert, moving a Pepsi machine on a dolly across the desert with dialogue happening over it. So we're hearing the dialogue, but there's this weird little action happening way across this huge, vast desert. And I wanted it, if possible, to go on for 6 solid minutes. For that to happen, you need a huge, expansive desert that you can get in a frame. And, it wound up the full shot wound up being I think 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And I think I wound up using it at 3 minutes and 20 or something by the final cut. Regardless, uh, we're shooting this film. We're working on a budget of between zero and not any dollars. Use deferred pay for everything they're doing.
Yeah,
I'm using credit cards to buy everyone lunch. Right?
I
It's that
hear
kind of
you.
shoot. And it's wonderful and funny and dumb. Um, but we've got a coffee house. We're shooting scenes at a coffee house, and we've got an editing bay because we've got to shoot some scenes in an editing bay. But we're a week and a half into this thing, and I haven't found a desert. And I drop a guitar off at Provenza. Provenza was the lead in the film. I take a guitar over to him because I wanted him to play with it because he needed to seem to be playing a guitar at one point in the film. Uh, and while I'm there, a woman that I know comes out of his guest house. He says, "What are you doing here?" I thought you moved out to Joshua Tree. And Joe, yeah, yeah, I'm in Palm Desert now. I got a place in Palm Desert with a music studio. I said, you wouldn't happen to know, because, and I've been looking online, it costs $2,500 minimum to rent a desert for a day. And I don't, I'm not doing that. So I said to her, you wouldn't happen to know anyone who has a desert I could borrow? And she said, oh, yeah, here. And she pulls out her phone and she shows me the desert I've been imagining. And I said, how much is it going to cost me for your desert for a day? And she said, it's free and I'll make lunch for your cast.
Stop.
And as much as I do not believe in, airy fairy manifestation, if I just, say the right words in the right order to the right God, things will happen properly. However, there seems to be something, at least in the way I manipulate these things, that once I get started on something, once I'm actually working on a project, it begins to have a momentum and people I have a book coming out in September of 25. I've built up the limited series from it as well about Merlin still alive.
Yes.
Merlin in the modern world realizing that he set all of this terrible stuff in action when he put all this magic and power into a weapon.
Yeah.
So he puts together a team in New York and they fly to Wales to find Excalibur and destroy it because he fucked everything up. He made everything warriorism, and he's got to fix it because he's neurotic. And he talks in the book about the questing field. That once he starts, everybody gathers around him, and it's what I discovered making that movie. No matter how many times I said I'm thinking about making a movie, I want to make a movie. Can I get a meeting with you about making a movie? Nothing was happening. When I walked up to people and said, "So I'm making a movie," they were like, "Really? Can I be involved?" Well, yes, you can. It's going to be crappy if you don't have the right audio. Yeah, I'm trying to work that out. I can come do your audio for you. Really? Yeah, you're doing it in August? Yeah, I can come. All right.
Wow.
Like, but until the action begins, I can't do it. Like, I
No,
can't.
I don't. Yeah, I agree with you. And I don't think that works where it's like, by this time, I'm going to be this, I'm going to do that. It's almost like, I think that the paradigm that we're living in right now, as far as like manifestation, is just, you just think about it and let it go. It's
Okay.
not about pushing the agenda, it's about letting go.
And we are directly into Richard Bach.
What is that?
Richard Bach, he wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, which was a big hit in the early 70s, a book. And then he wrote something called Illusions, that was about sort of a modern day messiah who barnstorms around the country, introducing people to the idea that they can imagine something and then make the thing happen.
Yeah, I do believe in that. I do believe that we were not told that, but I do believe that that's 100% possible.
We were told the opposite.
Exactly.
We were told you can't fix City Hall, you can't change the world, keep
Or,
your head down.
and if you want something, you have to pray really hard. No, you don't have to do anything hard. Just think it. Thoughts and emotion align, and that's where the power lies. Ooh, I made it kind of rhyme.
Nicely done.
Yeah,
That's
thank
that's
you.
worth revising over the next several hours in your. I have to ask you an embarrassing question.
Yes.
How long is this podcast?
I have no idea because it's usually like 45 minutes, but we're just
Oh, okay.
going with it. Now, Mystery Man asked me if you're gonna play his guitar, your guitar. So that would be a good way to
Yeah.
end. But I would love for you to either come back to this podcast or do another one of my lives. Because
Oh, anything for you, Gracela.
oh, thank you.
I will do a story from my new show, Thinking Aloud. I opened the show with this story. Anyone who is familiar with my work, do you hear both the guitar and my voice?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Anyone who's familiar with my work, and really who isn't, will know that many of my stories can be long and heavy and multi-textured shades of
I
gray.
think you know what? I'm sorry, but I think like the guitar is overpowering your voice.
We can fix all of that right here.
Yes.
Is that better? Is that better?
Oh
Is
yeah,
that
much better.
better? All right. We'll try that. Many of my stories can be long and heavy, in multi-textured shades of gray, like the ponderous proboscis of the majestic pachyderm. This piece, to maintain that mammalian metaphor, is little more than a bit or two of gerbil fuzz, a beat or two of verbal jazz, a twist of the wit, a trick of the tongue, a tantalizing taste of linguistic terpsichore, a pithy parcel of prosodic prestidigitation, if you will. And if you won't, you're an anti-semantic bastard. It's called I Like to Support the Arts. Here we go.
If you have your head
On my way,
to
yes.
the mic, don't move it because that's when we hear your voice really well. Sorry, I had to say it.
I appreciate it. I can't tell what the hell I'm doing here because if I had my earphones on, I'd look goofy.
Yeah, when you look forward, it's we can't hear you. When you look at the mic, when your mouth is like right there, we can hear it.
On my way home from a gig, I stopped at a convenience store to buy milk for my morning coffee, ice cream for my wife. As I crossed from my car to the store, I was approached by an unemployed magician. He had the hungry eyes of a hunting hound. He shuffled like a beggar. He said, I got a quarter in my pocket, I can make it disappear. I got a quarter in my pocket, I can make it disappear. I said, show me. I swear to you, ladies and gentlemen, all he did was snap his fingers. He said it's gone. I said, that's amazing. Where did it go? He said, check your pocket. I checked my pocket, and sure enough, there, amongst all my other loose change, a bright, shiny quarter. I said, that's amazing. Hang on. How do I know this is yours? He said, check the date. I checked the date. I said, it's from 1994. He said, that is mine. I returned it to him. I said, do it again. Do it again. He said, I never repeat myself. I never repeat myself. I said, show me another. He said, I will need a $10 bill. I said, all I have is a 20. He said, that will do. I handed him a $20 bill. Folded it up right in front of me. No alakadabra, no abracazam. When he unfolded it, it was a 5. He returned it to me. I said, that's amazing. Change it back. He said, if I could change 5s into 20s, you think I'd be out here working for tips? I said, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was supposed to tip you. I gave him a 5. I like to support the arts. I went into the convenience store. I bought milk for my morning coffee. I bought ice cream for my wife. As I returned from the store to my car, the unemployed magician approached another man in the parking lot. He said, I got a quarter in my pocket. I can make it disappear. I watched him with the hungry eyes of a hunting hawk, and I swear to you, all he did was snap his fingers. I called him over. I said, hey, I bought you something. I handed him a fresh new pack of bicycle playing cards. He unwrapped the cellophane with a flourish. He tapped them out of the deck. Then he shuffled like a master. It's really hard to do that with the electric guitar without being able to hear the guitar.
I know. I'm so sorry.
That's quite all right. I didn't realize it until I'd started that I'd turned off the sound from my playback in here, so I wouldn't hear the guitar when I started. I
That
would.
is so funny, but it sounded perfect. It was great.
I do my best not to suck. This is so much fun, Grace. Am I supposed to hang out now and talk to other people?
No, now we're gonna end it. We're gonna put a couple of things, videos, and then we're done. We've been doing this for like an hour and a half. So here you are. We have some pictures of you.
Very fancy.
Yes, and you always wear a suit. I love that. And your glasses. That's your trademark, right?
Um, I'm I'm shifting now. I'm going to be doing now. I think when I perform, it's going to be suit vest without the jacket.
Really?
Partly a nod to global warming. Um, but
Yes.
also, because I'm now using the guitar in the act, it becomes a little cumbersome with the jacket.
Yes.
So I think it's just the suit vest with the, and because I don't care whether my guitars get dinged up, I'm still going to be able to do the watch chain. I'm also thinking about doing LASIK surgery so I don't have to do the glasses. Um,
Really?
I love the look of the glasses, but on stage they tend to reflect. And
Yes,
in two of my specials, I have felt like I wanted my eyes to be more visible, just as a
I
show.
agree. Yeah.
Uh, so I'm thinking about it, but I'm scared of it, you know.
Uh, I know it's your eyes,
Right?
I yeah, I know. It's oh, I don't know. Can you wear contacts?
God, I hate that idea too.
I know. I wear
Um,
contacts. I could never have like it any kind of surgery. I my last surgery was when I was 5 years old, and then when I got breast cancer, that was my
right.
second surgery. I didn't have surgery all those years
I
because
don't. I don't think I've ever had surgery other than oral surgery.
oh wow, you're lucky.
Yeah.
Actually, I like the anesthesia. It's kind of fun because it gives you a little buzz.
Oh man, the colonoscopy? I would go to that every week if they would let me. And I
I know
got the
it's like those
oh,
five
yeah.
seconds before you just pass out. They're so awesome.
Oh yeah. See, for me, that's where I find grace.
Yes. Yeah,
That
there you go.
moment before losing and or regaining consciousness. That's where I find grace.
Yes, I know. It's so good. And here you are again on more pictures.
Oh, that one in the middle, that's hair I hated.
Why?
At that moment, I have just stopped dyeing my hair and I'm letting the dark grow out. So you can see it looks a little bit like I'm wearing a saddle shoe on my head.
Oh, yeah.
Long length and it was all funny colors. It doesn't
Yeah.
it's the improv wall behind me. I don't mind you using the thing. I wouldn't have it out there in the world if I were too upset by it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we'd love to have you back, whether it's on this podcast or I have other lives that I do. So we'll talk
Say,
about that.
say the word. I'm there for you, Grace.
Oh,
As
that's so good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank
call
you
me
for
any old time
my
about
little
any old thing.
podcast.
And if you get a chance, if you want, just let me know, and I will send you the top secret link to my art film, and you can watch it, and you can
Oh,
tell me.
please. Absolutely. Please do.
Uh,
100%.
can I go eat food now?
Yes, you can go eat food. I'm going to do the same.
Okay, go away. Goodbye.
All right. All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in. We're going to actually show a couple of videos. As you all know, I teach swimming and I tutor kids. I was telling Dylan about that. And so here are some videos that will give you a little bit more info on what I do. So let's roll. All right, that was the tutoring. I teach Spanish. So if you want one on one or group lessons online, I do that all the time. And I hear I'm a good teacher. So I'm just giving you reviews. You can go to my website, findswimmingandtutoring.com, and look at the reviews. Okay. It's findswimmingandtutoring.com. So check it out. And let's roll the next one before we go. All right. So whatever you do, if you call me or text me, it's going to be 800 Fraga, like my last name. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I enjoyed it because Dylan is amazing, and we'll either have him back here or on Relationship Coaching Live to talk about neurodivergence. So we will be back next month. I have to reach out for the date because I don't remember, but I think it's beginning of August. So, of course, I'll post the flyers and everything. So, and I'm so excited that I didn't cough once during the podcast. I didn't have a cough attack. So, anyway, thank you again. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all your beautiful comments. I love you guys. Oh, August 2nd. Thank you, Mystery Man. He knows. And it's going to be at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. So I will see you guys on August 2nd on the YouTube channel. Subscribe, hit the like button, comment, and I will see you next time. Mwah.